and I am doing my presentation on Sir Terry Pratchett. And I had lots of fun and exciting things planned, and I am currently in the mood for none of that. So we're going to do this. So he lived from 1948. He was born in England and died in 2015 of early onset Alzheimer's. Not so young, but certainly not old enough. And he was a very prolific author, and he was actually ended up being knighted. I'll move my picture here. Ended up being knighted, and as a fun fact, he made his own sword off of 26 kilograms of iron ore, including a little bit of meteorite. Afterwards, and there's a quote and a link there. You can check it out in the PowerPoint video. Let's see here. So as far as genre goes, he mostly wrote in high fantasy. Not a lot featured in here, but there's also the Long Earth trilogy was in science fiction. He was collaborating with that. He used a lot of parody, a lot of satire. And an interesting thing was he tended to not put chapters in his books. He couldn't find a use for it. He only did it when the editors made him, basically. He would use a lot of concepts from literature. The one I just read, The Weird Sisters, had a lot of Macbeth in it, some Hamlet in it, a lot of other Shakespearean references as well. Honestly, some Midsummer's Night Dream probably. It was fun. What he's doing with all this is a little more on point than it looks at first. And some people don't take him seriously, but he uses a lot of whimsy and a lot of just, his universe is set on the back of a turtle, or his world is set on the back of a turtle, and it freely admits the ridiculousness of this at the beginning of most books. But it kind of gets you to relax, take a chill pill, just take this as a fun summer read or whatever. And then he deals with some serious sociological issues in the middle of the book. So that kind of hits a sweet spot for me. It's why he's one of my favorites. That humor combined with insight, really cutting insight that just comes together. That's kind of the beauty of satire there. So he was a huge advocate for fantasy. He did some debates with people about the legitimacy of fantasy as a genre. And that's not a huge part of this presentation, but it happened. Let's see here. Mostly he's known for the Discworld series is the biggest thing. There's 41 books in the Discworld series. As you might imagine, that's a good reason. If you have 41 books in anything, that's going to be what you're known for. They're all set on Discworld. There are several different protagonists in there. We'll get to that later. His other really well-known work is Good Omens with Neil Gaiman. And that was a show recently on Amazon. And it actually has a second season that goes beyond the book. But hey, one of the authors is still alive, so they might do it. His first novel was actually a children's book called The Carpet People. Has some references. Well, actually, I'll get into that later. But it has some things in common with Discworld as well, kind of an early prototype there. He also did some other children's and young adult works. The Gnome trilogy, which are basically gnomes. He just spells it differently. The Johnny Maxwell trilogy, Nation, Dodger, and there's a Dodger sequel, Guide to London, I think. And then he did a lot of collaborations as well. Very prolific author. This is all he wanted to do. It was his favorite hobby as well as his job. So lots. I've left a link in the notes here called Where's My Cow from my favorite book, Thud. And it's a children's book, like a picture book within an adult's book. And I recommend that, both Thud and Where's My Cow. Anyway, here's most of what he wrote, or at least a good half of them in the Discworld series. The Color of Magic was the first Discworld book. The Shepherd's Crown was the last Discworld book. I tried to include a combination of my favorites and the ones that won major awards in between here. The Light Fantastic is a good one that I have not read yet. Mort I have. Weird Sisters I just finished. Pyramids I've not read. Guards I have. Eric I have. That was a kind of a trifle of a book. It's kind of, I need to go back and look at that one again. It was very small. Speaking of small gods, lords and ladies. It might be better to follow along with the different protagonists here, and I have another slide about that. But he also had a lot of children's works. The Carpet People, like I mentioned, his first book ever. That was, from a major publisher. The Witch's Vacuum Cleaner, The Abominable Snowman, Dragons at Crumbling Castle, Father Christmas's Fake Beer, The Time Traveling Caveman. And I think the Maxwell ones fall under that as well, that trilogy. And the Tiffany Aching ones fall. I'd say the Tiffany Aching ones are more like a young adult's book, though. The We Free Men is the one I read of those. Great book. One of my favorites for sure. And then the Bromeliad books is another trilogy. That's the Gnome ones, actually. That's the same ones. Two names for the same. He was knighted. That's probably the biggest award and honor you're going to get. Just hands down, flat out, in the British Empire. He was shortlisted for the Hugo Award, and he recused himself, which is, cheers to that, buddy, if you can do that. He had 10 honorary doctorates conferred on him. I think the other award of note is the ALA's Margaret A. Edwards Award, a lifetime honor for significant and lasting contribution to young adult literature. So he definitely belongs in this field. And I probably introduced him as something like, hey, this sounds like an adult author. What are we doing? But, he definitely did that. His books have won so many awards they wouldn't fit on a PowerPoint slide. The Wikipedia page has all of them. Just tons and tons. So let's keep going here. Fun quotes from the literature. I'll let you read those. In the beginning, there was nothing, which exploded. Now, I'm religious, but that's funny. Here we go. Good Omens, like I said, was well known. This book has a ton of different covers. In fact, this was a cover I had not seen before researching this. I've seen probably 3 other covers, not counting the movie one. This was reprinted quite a few times. And there's a full Kirkus review there, which I guess will give you a look at that. Let's see. Keep it moving here. The We Free Men, one of my other favorites. Happy to do this. These are some Scottish pixies, essentially. You don't mess with them, but she's a new up-and-coming witch, and it's a lot of fun. And then Thud, probably my favorite Terry Pratchett book. It's just a delight from beginning to end for me. And if you don't think so, well, hey, there's no accounting for taste. But this is a great book. It didn't win. I don't think it won any awards. It was definitely my favorite one. Sam Vimes is the protagonist. He's a policeman in the major city of Ankh-Morpork, and this one kind of feels like not the culmination. Like it's the biggest Sam Vimes book. It feels like peak Sam Vimes, I think. Anyway, we'll keep moving here. I highly recommend this book. Here are some excerpts. I just keep moving myself around here. From Men at Arms, this became a thing. Sam Vimes' Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. The reason the rich were rich, Vime reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take Boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50, but an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots Vimes always bought and wore until the soles wore so thin that he could tell where he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that would still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while a poor man could only afford cheap boots, would have had to spend $100 on boots at the same time, and would still have wet feet. More on that later. So the Light Fantastic has a good one here. I recommend look at the PowerPoint. I'm not going to read through this. It has a continuation. It's a good example of how these books begin. I actually haven't read this whole book, but I read past this excerpt, took this out of it, and it's a good start compared to the other books that I have read. Not my favorite, but it's up there. And then from the Wee Freeman. Again, I'm not going to read these excerpts. I'd love to do it, but I'll try to move out of the way so that you can adjust this video or just look at the PowerPoint itself separately. There's that down there. There's this up here. Should be able to pause it in both places. Let's keep moving. All right, and then an excerpt from the Carpet People as well. I just like this one for his... not exegesis, what's the word? His explanations, his setting up the, just setting the stage with the information is just on point. I just love it. You know, sometimes they quarreled among themselves, but on the whole they lived peacefully and avoided having much to do with history, which tends to get people killed. And then they're evaluating this person here. He's a man of few words, and he doesn't know what either of them mean, people said. But not when he was within hearing. It's just so cheeky the whole time through. It's just a joy. As long as you can get down with some of the British humor, it's good to go. And then, of course, here's Good Omens. Of course, it's very one of his more famous ones. Sort of a first conversation between our two protagonists here. And there's enough time to move forward from there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Crawley, who has renamed himself as Crowley. Didn't you have a flaming sword? Said the angel. A guilty expression passed across his face, then came back and camped there. You did, didn't you, Self? Said Crawley. It flamed like anything. Well, it looked very expensive, I thought. Yes, but, well, lost it, have you? Oh, no, not exactly lost. More, well, Aziraphale looked wretched. If you must know, he said, a trifle testily. I gave it away. Crawley stared up at him. Crawley, in this case, was the snake in Genesis. Well, I had to, said the angel, rubbing his hands distractedly. They look so cold, poor things. She's expecting already, and what with the vicious animals out there and the storm coming up, I thought, well, where's the harm? So I just said, look, if you come back, there's going to be an almighty row, but if you might be needing this sword, here it is. So don't bother to thank me. Just do everyone a big favor and don't let the sun go down on you here. He gave Crawley a worried grin. That was the best course, wasn't it? I'm not sure it's actually possible for you to do evil, said Crawley sarcastically. Aziraphale didn't notice the tone. Anyway, and then from the Weird Sisters, some dialogue here where they had summoned a demon. Now, they never... This is not part of Discworld lore. I just loved how it just happened to peek in on a different facet of the world and presents it so convincingly. And this is just part of... Actually, I'm actually missing one of the good parts of this conversation where they negotiate with him for the third question. But I wanted to leave things a little bit shorter. Let's keep moving here. I think I do want to read. Oh, no, that's it. I feel like I had more pages there, but I don't. All right, some references. There we are. Have at it, ladies and gentlemen. Please, I do recommend.